But what I find is if we just focus on that next step, if we just focus on the next thing we want to learn, and we have time set aside for ourselves to learn and grow without putting so much pressure on that result, we can actually accomplish so much more.
Hey friends, it's Mary, and this is the Mary Jervich Show, a podcast that champions today's working women to gain the clarity, confidence, and courage to up-level your career while strengthening your faith and living your dream life, all in record time. We'll cover topics like career advancement, leadership, personal development, faith, and health and wellness, so you can intentionally create a career and life full of more abundance, joy, and love. Let's get started.
Hey friends, welcome back in. It's Mary, and I am so excited about today. Okay, I hope that y'all had a wonderful Christmas. I hope everything was magical and as fun as it could be. Christmas is just such a special time of year, remembering Jesus's birth, getting to talk about Jesus coming, and all of the things, all of the family and the food and the friends, right? There's so much to be thankful for, and just having some time, some downtime with our families to be able to reflect and think and really just get refocused on what's important to us. So I hope that you had a fantastic Christmas. I'd love to hear about it. If you ever want to email me, please feel free. My email is mary@mypromotionplan.com. You can email me, let me know what's going on in your world, or you can connect with me on social. I'd love to connect with you, and you can let me know, what you think about the episodes or what kind of's going on or how things are impacting you in your life, maybe some of your goals. In this episode, we're actually doing part 2 of our goal setting. And so what we want to do is I want to help you to be able to set yourself up for success. I don't know about you, but there have been times where I have set goals in the past and I have failed to meet those goals, and I have felt shame and guilt, and I kind of beat myself up. And what happened was it took me further away from what I wanted and not closer. And I want to just share with you some things that I've learned over the years that have helped me to obtain bigger goals and in less time than I've ever expected to, right? And so that's what I want to share with you today, how you can actually achieve the goals. Because some of the goals that you've set, you may not know how to achieve. Maybe you're not even sure that they're quite capable. They're those stretch goals. And I hope that you have a couple of those. If not, I want to encourage you to create some stretch goals. Let's dream a little. Let's put some things out there into the world. Now, some of you may be brand new to goal setting, and maybe some of you are like goal setting machines. And no matter where you're at in this journey, you can use the process that I'm going to teach you. If you haven't listened to the last episode, go ahead back, listen to the last episode, because you need to do the work in the last episode in order for this episode to be of benefit. So I am talking, assuming that you have already created your goals, you have them listed out by category, and you know the things that you want to do to kind of achieve the feeling, kind of achieve the experience you want. Some of these are really tangible goals, and some of these are relationship goals. And some of these are aspirational goals. And no matter what your goals are, the first key is to just decide what those are, right? We have to decide what we want. We are actually more in control than we think a lot. And so deciding what we want. I remember the first time I set goals, I was actually working and we had a company meeting, and our bosses wanted us to set goals, not just like business goals or goals for our career, but actual personal goals. And the process of setting goals was life changing for me. Some of the early goals that I set, like I talked last time about calling my grandmother. So I created this incredible relationship with my grandmother that I've had for the last 10 years, which is just so wild. I set goals to learn how to swim. I didn't know how to swim really well. I kind of like bobbed in and out. I got a swim coach, and it was amazing because now I can swim. I've been able to compete in triathlons because of that. I've had goals to run marathons. And so many different goals that I've been able to achieve, but it all comes down to using the process I'm going to share with you today. And so whether it's a career goal, it's a personal goal, whatever it is, we're going to teach you how you can accomplish that. Okay. So now that you've got your goals broken down, the key is we want to figure out how we're going to keep you focused. And we do that by determining your priorities. Now, you've already set your goals in this way. You've already set your goals with your biggest priorities. But now what you're going to identify is maybe you've set too many goals. Maybe you've been way too ambitious, and because the next key we're going to do is going to show us, like, have we been too ambitious? Have we put too much on our plate that it doesn't give us the time to actually enjoy life? It doesn't give us the time to rest or take that Sabbath like God wants us to have, or it doesn't give us the kind of best mental energy and fortitude to be the women that God created us to be, right? And so one thing I always say is we don't want to be like chasing goals and things like that. We do want to work towards things. We do want to achieve things, but not as a sacrifice to other things in our life. And so we have to figure out how to balance that. And so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to break down each item. And here's how we do this. I actually did this process whenever, and I've done it several times in my life, but I did this whenever I wanted to go from the vice president of operations to the chief of operations. And I was able to successfully do that in a year. And what you do is you take your goal. So let's just say you have a goal to be chief operating officer. We'll just say that that's your goal. What you're going to do is you're going to write down everything that you would need to be the chief operating officer. So maybe there are some skills that you need to learn. Maybe there's some relationships that you need to make. Maybe there's a certification that's not typical, but just kind of thinking like maybe I want to grow in leadership. I want to be a stronger leader, or perhaps there's some things that you need to get organized in your current position so you can move to that next position. And really just thinking about what are all of the things that I need to do, or what are the skills that I need to have in order to fulfill that position. Now, not perfectly, right? It's not like we have to be this perfect thing, but we do want to think about, okay, what is it that I want to move towards? What does it take to get there? So another example, let's just say that you wanted to be a top basketball player. You wanted to be a star basketball player. We'll use this analogy. And if you wanted to be a star basketball player, if we were going to list out everything that's needed, you would need to be an excellent dribbler. You would need to be a great shooter. You would need to be quick. You would need to be in shape. You would need to understand different plays, right? You maybe need to have a great foul shooting percentage. And so these are the different things that you would need. And so what you do is once you list everything that's needed for a particular goal that you're going after, you can actually put each of these goals, each of these smaller things that's required, on a sheet of paper. So yes, this takes a lot of paper, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it. And here's why. I'm going to teach you how to break everything down step by step. A lot of times we don't move forward with our goals because we get overwhelmed. We get overwhelmed thinking about that end result. Like, how am I going to be chief operating officer? How am I going to be this star basketball player? Because where we're at now compared to where we think we need to be can feel like a long distance away. And so if you will break it down step by step, what's required for you to get to this next position, and this could be, I'm going to be a great wife. This could be, I'm going to be a great mom. This could be anything. It doesn't have to be, it could be you want to spend more time with your girls. So whatever that is, you just want to list down all of those things that are going to kind of be required. What are those things? Now, once you have these on all their separate sheets of paper, the next thing that you're going to do is you're just going to think about what would you do? So let's go back to the basketball example. So if you were going to be a star basketball player, one of the things you're going to have to be great at is shooting foul shots. And so you want to get to a 75%, 80% foul shot percentage. Okay, so if you're going to get better, what would you need to do? Well, you would need to shoot baskets. And so what would be required is that you shoot, let's say, 50 baskets a day. Maybe it's 100, maybe it's 200. I don't know what the answer is, but the key is that we're going to come up with this structure, right? If we're going to get better at this, then we're going to do this. So if you want to grow as a leader within your organization, what do we need to do? Well, we likely need to take leadership classes. Yes, they're offered. We're actually going to be opening up leadership circles in February of this year. So if you want to join our leadership circles, we would love to have you, but you would want to learn leadership lessons. You would want to be in contact with leaders. And so maybe that looks like, it could like mean reading a chapter of a book a week and implementing a new leadership skill. It could mean joining a circle like we have where you get to work with other women and network and learn leadership skills and talk about how you're integrating those leadership skills in the workplace. And so you just want to think about, what would I need to do to become a great leader? Okay, so you might read books on leadership, you may join leadership circle or mastermind, And then you're going to want to implement what you're learning as a leader. And then you're probably going to want to reflect what you want to do as a leader. So all four of those things are going to be listed on your page under leadership, right? Become a better leader. They would all be listed there. So the next thing you want to do from there is break down that very first step, because those can even seem like, okay, well, that's a lot. Those are four things, right? So we talked about a book, we talked about a group, we talked about implementing, and we talked about reflecting. So the first two things are obvious that we need to do. We need to find a book and we need to join a circle. So the first thing that we could do is we could say, hey, well, let me see if I can find someone that's teaching leadership. In that case, you can start to do a research on who has leadership groups. And that is all you need to focus on right now. So that is your top priority for that item. And that is all that you have to focus on, because when you just focus on that very next step, now we are not so overwhelmed by thinking we have to be a world-class leader. We are now just researching places that offer leadership classes. And that would be the thing that you would focus on. That would be the next step that you're going to take. And when you break your goals down like this and you just focus on that next step, everything becomes so much easier and so much more manageable. So now you find some places that offer leadership. What would be your next step? Well, your next step would be to call or contact these places to see what they offer. So that's all you need to worry about. You don't have to dive right in and start learning leadership lessons the very first second you start this goal. It's finding the best way to do these things. And so now we're done our research. Now we're reaching out and we're contacting people. Okay, we start to contact people. What's our next thing we need to do? We need to make a decision and sign up. So we do that. Now we realize, okay, they already offer a book. There's a book that they're walking through. So we don't need to go and get another book. We're going to walk through this book with this group. And once you get started with that, now you can actually start to implement the things that you're learning. And so you would move on to that next step, but you would stay consistent with learning, and then you would implement putting it into practice in your career. Then you would move on to reflecting on how that's going. And you can decide, do I want to reflect at the end of each day, the end of each week, the end of each month? But you want to set time for reflection so you can see, how am I growing as a leader? How would have I handled this situation in the past? How did I handle it today? Did I lead well? And what improvements could I make? And that could be what your reflection process looks like. So this is just that example of how to break it down. Once you kind of understand the breakdown process and you take each of your bigger goals, you make all of the things that are required to hit those, you put those on separate sheets of paper, and you just focus on that next step, because sometimes we won't know all the steps. So you don't have to get overwhelmed if you're like, well, I don't know what's required. The first step may be to research what's required, or you may not know, every single thing you're going to need to do. I expressed to you last time that I'm going to be on a TEDx talk. Well, I don't know every step that I need to do, but I do know the first step that I need to do. And so I can focus on that first step instead of focusing on the end result. Okay, now once we get this done, the next step for us to do is to schedule it on our calendars. We need to use our calendars. We need to schedule this stuff, whether it's a paper calendar, it's electronic calendar. You want to have it written down and you want to commit time. We all have the same amount of time in our lifetimes in a day, right? But some people accomplish so much and others don't. It comes down to being intentional with our time, limiting our focus by understanding what our priorities are. And when you start to schedule time for your goals, and I want you to start with those important things. So schedule the stuff with God and put it in there. When are you going to spend time in your Bible or pray? What are you doing? Then I want you to schedule your time with your spouse. What have you set? Do you need time, whether it's to pray for them, whether it's to be with them, whether it's a date night, whatever that thing is, schedule that into your calendar. Or create it as a routine, right? It might not be something you necessarily have to schedule, but you want to make sure that it's a routine that happens. And it's like without even thinking. It's like when we wake up, I know for me, I use the restroom, I brush my teeth, I put my contacts in. Like that is the system. I'm doing the same thing every morning. So I'm not even thinking, right? I use the restroom, I wash my hands, I brush my teeth, I floss. I'm putting those contacts in. That's what's happening every single morning. And so I don't think about that. And that's how we want things. If it's not in our calendar, it has to become such a habit. And after you get something in your calendar, over time, it will become that habit for you. But at first, you want to schedule the time, because One thing that we often do is we overestimate what we can accomplish, especially in a shorter period of time, but we underestimate what we can accomplish in a larger period of time. And so when you'll take the time to put it onto your calendar, this is going to say, this is important to me, and this is the time in which I'm going to complete this thing. Now, you can shift things around on your calendar as we go out into the future. And one thing I want to suggest and mention to you, if your goal is to learn leadership, okay, it would be great for you to learn a new leadership lesson every day or to read a chapter of a book every day, right? And a lot of times we do that. We make these everyday goals. I'm going to do this every day, every day, every day. Everyday goals are really hard to stick to because a lot of stuff is happening in your life, especially if you're a mom like I am. Our time and our lives are not our own. We have other beings, other beautiful beings, our children, our spouses, our friends. We have people that need us. And it's not that our goals aren't important, but God didn't just put us here to just accomplish these things. He put us here to be his light and to show his love. And we can't do that if we're just focused on our goals. And so there's some times where we've got to be flexible, or maybe things come up at work, like different things will be happening for you. So what I want to suggest to you is, instead of trying to make yourself do it every single day, could you set a goal to do it 2 times a week, even for 15 minutes? If you work on something 2 times a week, even for 15 minutes, you are going to go so far with it. And so as you're scheduling things, especially things you want to do, just work towards it. It's as James Clear says in his book, Atomic Habit. We just want to be getting 1% closer to our goals every single day. If we are moving in the direction of our goals, then we are making progress towards them. And so if you will set aside just a little bit of time to do it consistently over time, you will accomplish so much. And this happens for a couple of reasons. One, because consistency compounds. And two, is because we learn over time. We learn through repetition, and it's spaced repetition in which we learn. So if you read an entire leadership book in 2 days, you will not retain as much of it as if you learned it over 12 weeks. Because when you take the 12 weeks to learn it, you are actually coming back. You are reminding your memory. You are creating new neurons. And so instead of trying to be perfect every single day with stuff, try to break it down and say, okay, what do I need to achieve my goal? There's some things like brushing our teeth. We need to do them every day. And then there's other things like working on our speaking that we can do a couple of times a week, but you want to make it manageable for yourself. And as you start to list your priorities onto your schedule, you can start to understand how much time you have. Have you allotted enough time to hit these goals? Or is it really not going to be possible? Have you been a little bit too ambitious? Or do you feel like once you get things on your calendar, you're like, oh, I have some space. I really could take on something else. In which case, you can think about something else that perhaps you're looking to achieve, an area you want to grow in, and you can set another goal for yourself. And the last thing I want to say about that is, last time we were talking about the different types of goals that we set. Some of those goals, like they're set goals, we know we can hit these goals automatically. If we're trying to eat a certain number of calories a day, or if we're trying to read a book, or we're trying to exercise a certain number of times, those are things within our full control. We can, we can put the calories in our mouth, we can exercise, we can do all of those things. We can read the book. Those are fully within our control. And so what you want to do is you want to make sure that all of your goals don't fall in either category, but more so the goals that are without of your control, the ones that are those more abstract goals, those goals, you want to make sure that you limit it to a few goals. Because if you're working really hard towards something over a period of time and you don't accomplish that thing, it can feel very deflating and you can lose motivation. The key is just to remember and to reflect. And that's the other thing I want you to do. I want you to set time to reflect on how things are going. A great time to reflect is after the first week. Put your schedule together, do your schedule for the first week. And then ask yourself, was this a normal week? Okay, it was. Great. Well, what went well? What is there anything you need to prune or change? Is there anything you need to add? Is there any area where you need to refocus? Has something shifted? And you can do that, whether it's weekly or monthly. Take time to reflect on how your goals are going. Did you set up the appropriate time? When you get time to practice your speaking, do you feel energized during that time, or do you need to switch it to a different time of day? Or is there a time where you feel like, oh, I get interrupted, or I'll push something off if I don't do it first thing? Do you need to move those things to the morning? Is there something you set in your schedule for 3 days a week, but really you're just getting there twice? Do you need to just move it to 2 days a week? Because you're seeing the progress anyways. And the key is for us just to break down these goals and continue to work towards the goals. And of course, you can plan this out even further. You can detail everything down. But what I find is if we just focus on that next step, if we just focus on the next thing we want to learn, and we have time set aside for ourselves to learn and grow without putting so much pressure on that result, we can actually accomplish so much more. And for most people, that will work just fine. Well, there you have it. That is how you can set your goals and achieve them. So I hope you'll go through this process and outline everything, get it onto your calendar, set that time to reflect, and let me know what your biggest goal is. I would love to know what your biggest goal is so I can cheer you on and be your accountability partner in the upcoming year. I hope that you achieve so much, and I just look so forward to our next conversation. Until we meet again, remember, you're only one plan away from your next promotion, and God, He's not done with you.
Hey friend, thank you for listening today. Be sure to join us next week for another great episode. If you receive value from today's show, I'd appreciate it if you would leave us a 5-star review to help others learn about the show. And if you're ready to fast track your career and increase your income, impact, and joy, then head on over to maryjervich.com and check out the masterclass that teaches you how you can advance too. I'd love to hear from you. You can connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. This and so much more can be found in the show notes. I look forward to seeing you soon.